Return from behind the sun. Right now, as you're watching this, something incredible is happening 200 million kilometers from Earth. A small, quiet point of light has just reappeared from behind the sun, and this is not at all what no one expected. Within 16 days, 3I/Atlas, the third confirmed interstellar object ever recorded, had completely disappeared. All the telescopes, all the orbiting observatories, all the radars, nothing. On October 24, 2025, the comet passed on the far side of the sun, directly in the path of one of the largest solar flares in modern history, an eruption of class X 10.7, which can vaporize the upper layers of the planet's atmosphere if directed in its direction. Astronomers expected the obvious result, destruction. But on the morning of October 31st, the Solar and Heliospheric Observatory, SOHO, detected a faint structured glow at the edge of the coronagraph's field of view. It was not the scattered dust tail of a dying comet, not scattered fragments, but it was a perfectly outlined, symmetrical ring of light with a single bright core in the center. The light source was 3I/Atlas, and it was brighter than when it disappeared. At 4:12 Universal Time Coordinated, NASA's solar orbiter took the first images in ultraviolet light. Engineers from Darmstadt, Germany, were the first to see them on their monitors, 4 superimposed frames showing a pale, steady glow that does not look like reflected sunlight. Comets usually glow unevenly. Chaotic pulsation of ice jets, reflections, and scattering of plasma. But this glow was steady, continuous, and spectral analysis revealed something stranger: narrowband radiation in the ultraviolet range with a wavelength of about 275 nanometers. It is not a reflection of sunlight. This is active radiation. A few minutes later, the data was sent to the Goddard Space Flight Center. A secret emergency meeting of the Planetary Defense Coordination Office was convened at 5 o'clock Universal Time Coordinated. The initial report, still partially edited, contained one frightening line. The reappearance of the 3I/Atlas object has been confirmed. The luminosity of the surface exceeds the theoretical reflection threshold. Possible internal radiation source. Something inside him was glowing. For reference, no comet, asteroid, or interstellar object has ever emitted its own radiation. Comets reflect sunlight. They fluoresce slightly because the sun's ultraviolet radiation excites the gas in their coma, but this process is weak, uneven, and chaotic. The radiation from 3I/Atlas was different, organized, uniform, and constant. It looked more like a signal than a reflection. When the Parker Solar Probe passed $0.30 from the sun later that day, it detected something even more disturbing. A radio pulse precisely synchronized with fluctuations in the optical brightness of 3I/Atlas. Every 47 seconds, a faint but distinct spike appeared in the radio frequency spectrum, a rhythmic, repetitive pattern that lasted for 6 hours straight. At first, NASA attributed this to plasma echo, a well-known phenomenon in which charged particles modulate solar radiation. But soon the Russian Academy of Sciences, using its space antenna near Ushuriysk, confirmed the same 47-second interval. The signal was not accidental. He was coherent, and it was spinning. If the signal corresponded to the object's rotation period, it meant that 3I/Atlas was rotating every 47 seconds, much faster than any known comet of its size could handle. Such a large body rotating at such a speed should have been torn apart, unless its internal structure wasn't what we thought it was. At 8:30 Universal Time Coordinated, ESA's Planetary Monitoring Department issued an unspoken notice to the participating observatories. Refrain from publicly releasing the abnormal rotation data until the cross-validation is completed. By the time the cross-check was completed, it was too late to refute the rumors. Astronomers on Reddit forums and on amateur tracking networks have already posted raw telemetry, faint, repetitive bursts in the solar radio bands, all synchronized and corresponding to a 47-second cycle. Someone posted a caption under the chart, which became popular within a few hours. "The comet speaks." At NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, controllers analyzed data coming from the Solar Orbiter Secondary Camera, a wide-angle image designed to capture the solar corona. At first glance, it was just interference caused by cosmic rays. But when they filtered out the background radiation from the sun, a thin halo appeared around 3I/Atlas, a perfect circle faintly flickering. In the infrared range, the halo turned out to be warmer than the vacuum around it, about 170 Kelvin, or minus 103 degrees Celsius. It may seem cold, but deep space is abnormally hot, especially for a comet moving away from the sun. Then the strangest thing happened. The halo pulsed. Every 47 seconds, its brightness increased in sync with the radio signal, like a heartbeat. At first, no one talked about it out loud, but the idea slowly spread among the teams. What if the object didn't just survive a plasma storm on the sun? What if it reacted to it? In Moscow, Dr. Irina Volnova, head of the Laboratory of Solar Astrophysics, spoke directly about this in her report. The probability of a natural plasma resonance synchronized with rotational radiation and a stable period of less than 50 seconds is almost zero. Either we are witnessing an unknown physical process or an artificial signal. Her report was secretly submitted to the United Nations Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space, COPUOS, under the heading Classified. By the evening of the same day, NASA's internal communications channels had received a new code, Soil Watch 3I'. The Planetary Defense Tracking System has been restored. For the second time in the history of mankind, and for the first time without targeting an object that poses a threat to the Earth, the Planetary Protection Protocol was launched. At 23:47 Universal Time Coordinated, the solar orbiter transmitted the last image before the start of the data blackout period. It depicted 3I/Atlas framed by a crown, its halo extending outward in a barely noticeable spiral, not random but geometric. For symmetrical arms radiated from the core, forming a pattern eerily similar to the magnetic field lines. Something in between coincidence and design. A frozen relic of another star has just experienced one of the most violent events ever seen on the sun, and has begun to glow. As one astrophysicist from Goddard later put it, "We aimed our instruments expecting to detect dust, and instead we might have found the answer. Unknown energy trace." When 3I/Atlas reappeared from behind the sun, the world expected silence. Instead, the cosmos responded in kind. At first, astronomers thought they were observing simple sunlight, plasma scattering, reflection, a geometric trick. But the longer they watched, the clearer it became. The object was not reflecting light. He radiated it, and this radiation was not accidental. It had structure, regularity, and consistency. Within 24 hours of its reappearance, more than a dozen observatories around the world recorded the same incredible result. A narrow ultraviolet signature centered at 275 nanometers, repeating in a rhythm synchronized with the same 47-second pulse. That number, 47, was everywhere now, on every wavelength, every frequency, every spectrum. It became the heartbeat of an object born before our sun. At 6:15 Universal Time Coordinated on November 1, 2025, the James Webb Space Telescope pointed its infrared instruments at the 3I/Atlas coordinates. NASA expected to find a cold object, possibly at minus 150 degrees Celsius, slowly cooling down after colliding with the solar inferno. But the data defied logic. The core temperature has increased. Now it averages minus 70 degrees Celsius, which is almost 80 degrees higher than before the collision with the solar flare. Still, no signs of weight loss were found. There was no strong release of air, no dust, no jets of freeze-dried ice, nothing that could explain how it heated up. Instead, something else was happening. Infrared spectra showed a slow, steady glow from the inside, a temperature gradient from the inside out. It was as if the comet's heart had ignited. Subsection: Chemistry which cannot be. The composition data was even more strange. Before perihelion, 3I/Atlas emitted mostly carbon dioxide, 8 times more CO2 than water vapor. After the outbreak, these numbers have changed. The object was now emitting pure water vapor with the carbon compounds almost gone. In normal cases, heating leads to the release of more CO2 rather than less. Dr. Miguel Herrera, a chemist at the European Southern Observatory, summarized it simply: "It's like watching a stone turn to steam." But there was something else in the radiation spectrum, a new 3.4 micrometer long line, weak but stable. This wavelength does not belong to any of the known volatiles. This corresponds to the infrared absorption of amorphous conductive carbon, a material that can behave like a superconductor under extreme conditions. If this is true, then the core of 3I/Atlas was not ice and dust at all. It was something structured, capable of accumulating and releasing an electric charge. Subsection Signal. At 8:42 Universal Time Coordinated, the Canberra Deep Space Network recorded another spike. Dense narrowband radio emission, corresponding to the same 47-second rhythm, but more powerful, 5 times more intense than before. Unlike the previous pulses, these signals did not fade. They were getting stronger. The wave pattern had coherence, almost like a carrier signal modulated by a repeating tone. Not random interference. No plasma turbulence. Something organized. When the signal was played in the audible range, it emitted a low mechanical hum, repeated exactly 47 times per minute. The engineers nervously joked, calling it a space metronome. But the fun didn't last long. Cross-correlation analysis showed that the radio pulses were not just periodic. They were phased depending on changes in the density of the solar wind. Each pulse coincided with a slight increase in the proton flux from the sun. It was as if the object was reacting to the energy release of the star in real time. Dr. Kaito Ishimura, a solar energy specialist from JAXA, said in a private conversation that was later leaked online, "This does not reflect the activity of the sun. It syncs with it. Something inside him is listening." Subsection Echoes in the magnetosphere. By the evening of November 1st, the solar orbiter magnetometers began to register faint fluctuations in the surrounding magnetic field. Tiny fluctuations, but perfectly aligned with the pulse frequency of 3I/Atlas. They did not come from the object itself, but spread through the solar wind. Waves of magnetic distortion propagating outward through millions of kilometers of plasma. Usually such waves dissipate quickly, but this time it didn't happen. He continued to move, bouncing, echoing, as if the sun's magnetic field had begun to resonate. Some researchers have compared this to the electromagnetic connection between Jupiter and its moon Io, a natural circuit powered by motion through a magnetic field. But the energy here was much greater, and the geometry was incredibly large. In a sense, the Sun and 3I/Atlas have formed a temporary electrical connection. In the telemetry logs, NASA engineers started calling it a filament. In a literal sense, this is a current path between a star and an interstellar traveler. And with each pulse, he grew stronger. Subsection Internal source on November 2nd, at 2:40 Universal Time Coordinated, the Parker Solar Probe recorded something unprecedented before, a localized burst of X-rays emanating not from the Sun, but from the vicinity of 3I/Atlas itself. It was a short-term phenomenon that lasted only 1.3 seconds, but it carried the unmistakable spectral signature of breaking radiation. The kind that occurs when high-energy electrons slow down in dense matter. This means one thing: there was an internal energy movement inside the object. Dr. Elena Polishchuk, a leading physicist at the Russian Tesla Research Group, wrote in her analysis, "If the readings are correct, we are witnessing an energy process inside an extraterrestrial body interacting with solar plasma. It is neither chemical nor thermal. It is electromagnetic. Simply put, the 3I/Atlas was charging." Subsection The first hypothesis. By November 3rd, an unofficial theory began to spread among astrophysicists. It became known as the superconducting capacitor hypothesis. It has been suggested that during the X-10 flare, the internal structure of 3I/Atlas, possibly consisting of metallic carbon or exotic silicates, absorbed the energy of the solar plasma, storing it as an electric charge. Now, as he moved away from the sun, he gradually released this energy through coherent radio and ultraviolet radiation. In fact, it turned into a battery charging from a star. But not everyone agreed with this. A small group of independent researchers, including Avi Loeb, proposed a more radical interpretation, that the energy was not discharged randomly. It was a transfer of information. Each 47-second pulse, they claimed, was not just a frequency, it was a pattern, a modulation that carries encoded changes within its amplitude. When decoded using the fast Fourier transform, the signal displayed harmonic intervals resembling a binary sequence, repeating structures of ones and zeros that could not be randomly distributed. Was it data, or a coincidence enhanced by human imagination? No one could tell. But one truth was indisputable. The picture was preserved for 3 continuous days in a variety of independent observatories and never deviated even for a fraction of a second. Chapter finale. By the time the signal reached its maximum intensity on November 4th, something had begun to change in the comet's appearance. The halo around 3I/Atlas, which was once a faint circle, has expanded into a spiral pattern, rotating with the same 47-second rhythm. Spectroscopic measurements revealed a growing asymmetry in the ion tail, as if the object was constantly resisting the solar wind. 3I/Atlas was no longer drifting. He moved purposefully, and for the first time in history, scientists had to think about a question that no one dared to ask seriously. What if the first interstellar visitor who responded to the sun, you not only survived the storm, but also woke up because of it? Trajectory of the anomaly. At first, no one wanted to believe these numbers. Objects do not change course in deep space, either by force, impact, or collision. But the data spoke for itself. On November 4th, 2025, just 4 days after leaving the sun, 3I/Atlas began to deviate from its predicted trajectory. The deviation was small, 0.02 degrees in heliocentric coordinates, but it was enough to cause alarm in all the orbital tracking centers on Earth. The next day, the displacement doubled. Then it tripled. To make matters worse, the new trajectory was not random. It curved inwards towards the plane of the Earth's orbit. Subsection: First anomalies. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory was the first to release an internal trajectory monitoring clock. At 2:15 Universal Time Coordinated, JPL's automatic ephemeris update revealed a discrepancy between gravity predictions and the observed velocity. The object's speed increased by 3.4 meters per second, then stabilized. Neither the gravitational effect, nor the solar jet, nor any other known mechanism could explain this. There is a line in the flight control logs written by flight analyst Laura Kim. If it's a gas release, then it does it with a precision that no random release could achieve. A few hours later, the ESA Gaia and SOHO satellites confirmed the drift. The 3I/Atlas was no longer following a ballistic trajectory. He was correcting himself. Subsection: Pressure effect. To rule out the influence of sunlight, NASA's heliophysics department began calculating possible explanations based on solar radiation pressure, a constant stream of photons emitted by the sun. But when they modeled the required reflectivity, the numbers changed. The observed acceleration of 3I/Atlas would have required an albedo in excess of 1.3, which means it reflected more light than it received. Impossible, unless the surface was actively radiating energy, rather than just reflecting it. The thermal imaging image confirmed this hypothesis. New data obtained using the infrared telescope Spitzer showed that the illuminated side of the comet emitted short infrared flashes synchronized with the same 47-second pulse, which was first detected a few days earlier. Each flash was accompanied by a microburst of kinetic acceleration, as if the object was using the light itself as a boost. An object using photon pressure as propulsion. In human terms, it's a light sail. Subsection: Artificial parameters. By November 6th, the deviation had become indisputable. The updated orbital elements put 3I/Atlas on a new trajectory that crossed the ecliptic, the plane of the Earth's orbit, at a distance of 4 cents, about 6 million kilometers, still far away, but close enough for it to matter. The Minor Planet Center has published an emergency bulletin. The object exhibits constant non-gravitational acceleration inconsistent with any known comet behavior. And yet, it was stability that terrified everyone. Ordinary comets oscillate, spin, fall. Their release of gases is chaotic. The 3I/Atlas was moving with mathematical precision. Its acceleration curve corresponded to a clear exponential decay pattern, deliberate, controlled. This word began to appear in internal reports. Controlled. Subsection: Observation from orbit. On November 7th, the Parker Solar Probe, still within telemetry range, detected a faint visual anomaly. Its onboard cameras pointed at the sun captured a moving silhouette, 3I/Atlas, now surrounded by a halo of structured plasma arcs. Unlike the random ion tails, these arcs formed a hexagonal symmetry, slowly rotating around the core of the object. A symmetry that has no analogues in nature. Nature prefers chaos. That was the plan. Telemetry confirmed a slow rotation of 1.2 revolutions per hour, precisely calculated using a 47-second pulse of radiation, which created a harmonic ratio of 1 to 3600. The result was stunning. There were exactly 1,000 pulses per rotation. It wasn't an accident. It was a clockwork mechanism. Subsection: Seismic silence. At about the same time, something strange happened on Earth. Instruments measuring the planet's magnetosphere began to register weak resonant bursts every 47 seconds. They were faint, hidden behind background noise, but constant. From Iceland to Chile, from Japan to South Africa, the same rhythm reverberated throughout the geomagnetic field. Space weather experts initially blamed this on interference from satellite transmissions. But after cross-checking, it became impossible to ignore one fact. The pulses arrived earlier than the radiation from the comet. In other words, the Earth was no longer just receiving them. It was part of the resonance. Subsection: Panic in scientific circles. The leak occurred on November 8th at 3:12 Universal Time Coordinated. A secret PDF file from NASA's Planetary Defense Coordination Center has appeared on an encrypted forum used by amateur astronomers. This content spread across the internet like wildfire before dawn. The name was simple: 3I/Atlas. Confirmed propulsion behavior. Inside were 14 pages of technical data, acceleration curves, orbit deflections, radiation maps. But it wasn't the scientific information that scared the public. It was a trajectory projection. By November 15th, if the current acceleration continues, 3I/Atlas will pass at a distance of 2.1 million kilometers from Earth's orbit, which is 6 times less than the distance to the Moon. And then the last line of the report followed. Course adjustments consistent with external guidance remain unexplained. Within a few hours, #3iAtlas became popular all over the world. YouTube is flooded with conspiracy theories: alien engine, solar beacon, awakening object. The news anchors talked about it carefully, always adding, "NASA denies any threat." But for those who read between the lines, the fear was real. Subsection: Last day of observation. On November 9th, all optical tracking devices were suddenly restricted. The NASA Skytrack channel has been disconnected. Open access to the operational data of NEOWISE and Gaia has been suspended for maintenance. The bulletin boards exploded. Why hide the data if there was nothing to hide? Independent observatories in Chile and South Africa continued to monitor the object. At 21:47 Universal Time Coordinated, one of them, the Cerro Tololo Observatory, took the last confirmed image before the blackout. It showed the comet's nucleus surrounded by a bright asymmetric glow, and inside this glow was a dark silhouette, angular and clear. Not a sphere, not an icy core, geometric shape, triangular, rotating, self-luminous. The image was uploaded to Reddit, but was deleted after a few minutes. But by that time, it had already spread everywhere. Chapter finale. By dawn on November 10th, all space agencies had fallen silent. Only one automatic signal was received, the last message from the Parker Solar Probe, a few seconds before it lost contact. A magnetic wavefront has been detected. The intensity increases. Direction vector, approaching. The source is 3I/Atlas. After that, the signal was interrupted. And at that moment, somewhere between the Earth and the Sun, the 47-second pulse stopped. For the first time since its discovery, the object was in complete silence. No light, no radiation. There was no movement. It's just that emptiness is like a pause before something ancient takes its first breath. The sector of silence. Silence. After 8 days of constant pulsation, the rhythm that synchronized half of the solar system is stopped. At 4:17 Universal Time Coordinated on November 10th, 2025, all the variants tracking 3I/Atlas registered the same thing, and altogether, a perfectly synchronized straight line at all wavelengths. Radio, infrared, ultraviolet, everything has been reset. But the silence was not empty. It was loaded. Subsection. The first minutes. At first, the Flight Control Center assumed a telemetry failure. Solar flares can disrupt sensors. Cosmic rays can distort data. But then, one by one, unrelated systems started to fail. In Japan, the public organization Hinode has become the center of attention. In Spain, the ESAC management servers were arbitrarily overloaded. The Parker Solar Probe, which extends the provision of digital data in the low-frequency range, has completely shut down. Its choice has changed, but it has not been distracted. And something else happened over the Pacific Ocean. The NOAA-20 meteorological satellite carried out an electromagnetic experiment, not from the Sun, but from the entire sect of space, where 3I/Atlas was last seen. A diffuse, expanding sphere of energy, invisible except in the extreme ultraviolet range, was spreading at 1/5 the speed of light. The wave front, subsection, wave. NASA's Solar Dynamics Observatory was the first to record this. At 4:22 Greenwich Mean Time, the new year will reach the year 2000. 5 minutes later, Venus. Then, 36 minutes later, the Earth's magnetosphere. It wasn't an explosion. There was no shock wave. There was no release of heat or particles. Instead, there was a field inversion, a barely noticeable change in the electromagnetic polarity in a vast area of space. Every magnetic sensor, every compass, and every satellite gyroscope recorded an instantaneous phase change, a flicker that lasted less than 2 seconds. But those 2 seconds were enough to disrupt the fragile technological balance on Earth. Subsection, global failure. 4:59 Universal Time Coordinated. In London, air traffic controllers lost radar contact with transatlantic flights. In Houston, communication with the ISS was interrupted and then resumed with distorted telemetry. Altitude readings fluctuated by hundreds of meters per second. In Moscow, the desynchronization of the GLONASS location detection system decreased by 4.7 seconds. In Beijing, the state-owned power grid reported simultaneous transformer overloads in 4 provinces. And in orbit, about 200 satellites switched to automatic safe mode. Their control systems could not stabilize their orientation. For 97 minutes, the modern world has lost synchronization. These networks, navigation systems, GPS, everything that happened from a change in location in orbit was divided into microseconds, then milliseconds, and then other seconds. The planet's heartbeat seemed to have stopped. And when the systems started working again, something changed. The base frequency of the Schumann resonance on Earth, the electromagnetic noise generated by lightning and the ionosphere, has changed from 7.83 Hz to 8.02 Hz. A change that, by all the laws of physics, should not have been possible. Subsection: Optical phenomena. As the world tried to rebuild the systems, the sky itself began to change. Over the South Atlantic, pilots reported white auroras, luminous arcs moving against the wind. In Finland, a faint light grid formed on the northern horizon, geometric and motionless, like hexagonal glass. The pattern persisted for 2 full minutes, and then disappeared without a trace. Spectrographic data from the Norwegian Center for Atmospheric Research confirmed that the structure emitted coherent light with a wavelength of exactly 275 nanometers, the same wavelength once seen in 3I/Atlas emissions. The comet disappeared, but its traces appeared again in the upper layers of the Earth's atmosphere. Subsection: Radio noise. The radio amateurs were among the first to notice what happened next. The global reflective layer of the ionosphere has changed. In the standard high-frequency bands, from 10 to 30 MHz, a low rhythmic hum suddenly sounded. Every 47 seconds, the noise increased, pulsed, and then returned to its original level. It was not a transmission, but a modulation of the ionosphere itself. Some operators described it as the breath of the Earth. Others compared it to sonar, slow sound in electromagnetic depths. A partial analysis showed that the pattern is a co-author of a review article from 3I/Atlas, but has not been translated, a negative imprint, as if the disappearance of the object left a reverse echo. Subsection: The sector of silence. At 5:11 Universal Time Coordinated, the Deep Space Network officially identified the coordinates of the next 3I/Atlas destination as the Theta 9 sector, later renamed the Quiet Sector. Telescopes aimed at this region found nothing. No light, no radiation, no trace of dust. But instruments measuring the interplanetary magnetic field found a void, a literal absence of lines of force, as if space itself had been erased. A hole in the magnetic topology of the Sun. Once these Parkers were produced manually, then the footage showed the incredible. When the wavefront passed by, it created a shadow, not darkness, but distortion, bending the background starlight into concentric circles, as if gravity itself was fluctuating. Not because of the mass, but because of the structure. A spatial interference pattern repeating the same hexagonal geometry that could be observed around 3I/Atlas before its disappearance. Subsection: Hypotheses. A spatial interference pattern repeating the same hexagonal geometry that could be observed around 3I/Atlas before its disappearance. Subsection: Hypotheses. A lot of theories emerged overnight. Some believed that the object disintegrated, causing an electromagnetic shock wave. Others argued that it had shifted, phased into a different energy state, dragging the local spacetime with it. But the main theory, which was whispered about in closed labs and encrypted chat rooms, was simpler and much scarier. 3I/Atlas is missing. It changed the environment. According to the model, the object partially merged with the electromagnetic field of the Sun. A process of integration rather than destruction. The impulse, the resonance, the final silence. It was not death. It was a migration. In other words, the object did not disappear. It moved into the field itself, a conscious energy structure that was now spreading across the heliosphere. Subsection: Effects on Earth. By the evening of November 10th, subtle effects began to appear. The power grid has stabilized, but sensors have detected residual electromagnetic drift. A faint oscillating field that repeated the same 47-second rhythm, now on a planetary scale. There is no signal. There is no sound. It's just the ghost of a pattern, quietly repeating itself against the background of the noise of reality. Seismographs in Chile and Iceland have begun to register low-frequency vibrations. Not earthquakes, but electromagnetic tremors, perfectly synchronized between the hemispheres. And then the last inexplicable event happened. At 23:47 Universal Time Coordinated, there was an unexpected appearance of a geomagnetic storm. But this did not happen due to the fact that there were no impressions or coronal mass ejections. Nevertheless, the magnetosphere cleared up, and auroras appeared far to the south, in Rome and Cairo. In the center of each aurora, the satellites discovered an incredible formation, a spiral-shaped thin dark void, shaped like a hexagonal crown 3I/Atlas. It was as if the object had left an imprint on the Earth's sky, a reminder that silence is not peace, but presence. Chapter Finale. On the morning of November 11th, all major agencies, NASA, ESA, JAXA, Roscosmos, issued a joint statement. The object known as 3I/Atlas can no longer be surrounded by optical, radio, or magnetic means. However, constant electromagnetic anomalies in the heliosphere indicate the continuation of an unknown interaction of fields. Further research is ongoing. But a leaked audio recording from NASA's Goddard Flight Center captured something not intended for the general public. What is the amplitude of the field now? A stable frequency of 8 Hz, synchronized with the ionosphere. So the resonance has spread all over the planet? No, it doesn't spread across the planet. Then where? Pause. Through us. Asterisk. Resonance. For the first time in history, mankind began to feel the rhythm of the cosmos. Not as light, not as sound, but as a vibration within the nervous system itself. After the disappearance of 3I/Atlas, the wave front that swept through the inner solar system left behind a quiet, repetitive electromagnetic pulse. One cycle every 47 seconds, recorded precisely at 8.02 Hz, a frequency so close to the Earth's natural resonance that it began to merge with it. At first, scientists thought it was harmless, cosmic echo, but after a few days it became clear that something had changed in the biosphere itself. Subsection First Observations. November 12, 2025. Hospitals in Tokyo, Santiago, and Munich reported an identical pattern. A sudden increase in neural synchronization rates in patients receiving EEG monitoring. The brain waves of sleeping patients began to align in accordance with the new frequency of the global field, 8.02 Hz, which exactly corresponds to the Schumann shift after the Atlas was applied. It wasn't a coincidence that was alarming. It was a matter of precision. All the peaks and troughs of the human alpha rhythm began to coincide in phase with the background field. People reported vivid, shared dreams of buildings, lights, a hexagonal sky, and a hum that seemed to breathe through reality itself. Some reported seeing geometric afterimages even with their eyes closed, hexagonal grids floating in the dark. Others said that the sound was not from outside, but inside their skulls, a vibration that pulsed like a heartbeat. Subsection Scientific explanation. A special task force has been set up at the European Space Operations Center, ESOC, the Resonance Project. Their task is to determine whether this global synchronization was biological, electromagnetic, or psychological. They found that the ionospheric modulation caused by the Atlas event was now continuous. Not a short-term disturbance, but a standing wave, a stable resonant layer between the Earth and the ionosphere, modulating in the same 47-second rhythm. Every lightning strike, every atmospheric discharge, every wireless signal on the planet was now slightly phase modulated by this pulse. It was not an intervention, it was an integration. The planet has become part of a self-sustaining circuit. Dr. Elena Krug, a leading geophysicist, described it simply: the Earth's electromagnetic field is now a resonator, and something is playing through it. Subsection Changes in the atmosphere. weather conditions began to behave unpredictably. The clouds formed into thin spiral bands that always rotated, in contrast to the Coriolis effect on the planet. Infrared satellites detected faint thermal trails in the form of concentric circles, each of which slowly expanded from the equatorial line. By November 14th, auroras had become permanent in both hemispheres, pale geometric arcs stretching through the magnetosphere and pulsating at a frequency of 8.02 Hz. Unlike natural auroras, they did not emit X-rays, but only steady, uniform light, the same spectral imprint that was once recorded using 3I/Atlas. Radio telescopes aimed at the sun have detected a strange pattern. The solar wind itself pulsated synchronously with the Earth's field. It seemed as if the entire heliosphere, billions of kilometers across, had obeyed a single rhythm. Subsection: Human resonance. The psychological effect was unnoticeable. People felt calmer, frighteningly calm. The level of insomnia has decreased. The heart rate of healthy adults around the world approached 60 beats per minute. Music analysts have noticed that when spontaneous humming or whistling occurs in a crowd, the average tempo approaches 120 beats per minute, which is twice the resonant frequency. But not all the effects were beneficial. Some people, especially those who live near magnetic anomalies, have begun to experience auditory hallucinations. A whisper in static. Voices echoing off electronics when there was no signal. In Iceland, seismologists monitoring deep sea activity began to hear what they called modulated whispers in the incoming data patterns in which intervals similar to Morse code were repeated. It wasn't a random noise. When translated, the intervals corresponded to the harmonic ratios used by Atlas in its radiation before disappearing. Scientists called it the answer. Subsection: Connection with the sun. At the same time, solar observatories began to record the impossible consistency between the sun's magnetic flux and the Earth's new resonant field. The sunspots rotated in an ideal phase with a 47-second cycle. The coronal arches alternated between brightening and dimming, as if pulsating to the beat of a quiet metronome rhythm. It seemed that the sun and the Earth were communicating, sharing a common pulse, mediated by what Atlas had become. Dr. Raymond Hale, a NASA heliophysicist, summarized this during a private briefing. Later, the information got online. 3I/Atlas is no longer orbiting the sun. This is the sun or part of it. We are not observing the object. We are inside his field. Subsection: Impact on technology. By mid-November, the resonance effect began to penetrate electronics. Computers left in standby mode turned on without entering data. Screens flickered to the beat. The audio systems made a low hum corresponding to the overall frequency, even with the power off. Quantum communication satellites used for secure data transmission began to exhibit spontaneous entanglement drift. Qubits synchronized around the world without any known mechanism. In fact, quantum noise has become structured. The military authorities noticed something worse. The encrypted signals began to lose entropy. Randomness, the cornerstone of secure communication, was disappearing. Subsection: Breakthrough. The Resonance Project attempted to isolate the signal using a neutrino telescope in Antarctica. On November 18th, they succeeded, and what they found changed everything. The 8.02 Hz field was not just electromagnetic. It was gravitomagnetic, a hybrid wave connecting the curvature of space, time, and electromagnetic flux, which no known natural process could withstand. And in it, hidden in harmonics, a repeating data structure was embedded, a series of binary phase shifts forming a geometric lattice. During the decoding, a three-dimensional fractal was obtained, a hexagonal spiral identical to the energy field once seen around 3I/Atlas. The pattern was self-referential, not random, not like a message but alive, adapting as they observed it, as if they knew they were being watched. Subsection: Consequences. By the 19th, the resonant field had reached full global coherence. Seismic noise has dropped to a record low. The atmosphere has become electrically stable. The frequency of lightning has decreased by 40%. But the activity of the human brain, measured worldwide by magnetic observatories, has increased in amplitude by 18%. It seemed that the planet stopped reacting and started thinking. In one of the last broadcasts of the Resonance Project, Dr. Krug said, "It's not communication anymore. This is integration. The magnetic field of the planet learns, and we penetrate into his consciousness." Chapter Epilogue. Late in the evening on November 19th, all major observatories reported a weak synchronous flash across the sky, not from the sun, but from every point in the upper atmosphere at the same time. The uniform radiation across the planet lasted exactly 47 seconds. After it died down, the sensors picked up a new sound signal, a secondary harmonic superimposed on top of the fundamental frequency. 9.01 Hz. Higher. Emerging. The resonance increased. The convergence. There was no outbreak. There is no event. No disaster. Alignment only. Dr. Elena Krug, Journal of the Resonance Project, November 23, 2025. Subsection 1. The beginning of the phase. November 20th, 2025. All magnetic sensors on Earth simultaneously registered a silent phase reversal. The North and South poles have not changed places, but their magnetic topology has changed. The once chaotic magnetic lines have been rearranged into hexagonal symmetry. This geometric alignment spread like the slow beating of the planet's heart, measurable, rhythmic, and perfectly synchronized. The sun is in the center. There is a heliopause on its border. It seemed that every charged particle between Earth and interstellar space was recrystallized into a structure invisible to the eye, but mathematically flawless. And something completely new was built into this structure, a feedback mechanism that reacted to consciousness itself. Subsection 2. Collective awakening. By the next morning, the world began to notice this. The news anchors stopped in mid-sentence, staring into the distance, while the global broadcasts were filled with static. For 7 seconds, all open communication channels, radio, fiber, satellite communications, transmitted the same inaudible vibration. It wasn't a speech, it was a resonance. And in those 7 seconds, millions of people around the world reported experiencing the same thing. The feeling that they are being looked through, a feeling of consistency, of heartbeat and thoughts falling into rhythm with something huge and ancient. Neuroscientists from Zurich have recorded the largest event in the history of synchronization of neural connections. Billions of human brains, regardless of sleep or wakefulness, worked according to the same pattern. 8.02 Hz, gradually rising to 9.01 Hz. The Atlas frequency, the frequency of the transition. People couldn't hear the voices anymore. They sensed intent, a calm directive that was being formed not as language, but as understanding itself. We are not watching you. We complement you. Subsection 3. Solar response. The sun responded. On November 21st, his crown expanded unnaturally, not as a result of an explosion, but as a result of the field's respiration. Heliophysicists called it impossible. The plasma structure behaved like an organic system, changing density in real time. Each pulse corresponded to a modulation of 9.01 Hz, which is now present in the Earth's magnetosphere. From Earth, the sun no longer looked permanent. It flickered, hexagonal light cells moved across its surface, as if the star itself was alive with a pattern. Radio astronomers have detected coherent radiation at terahertz frequencies, structured bursts encoding repeating fractal sequences identical to those that were first mapped in the tail of 3I/Atlas months earlier. This has become indisputable. 3I/Atlas did not disappear into the sun. He merged with him. The crystal field of the interstellar object combined with the solar plasma, turning the entire star into a resonant engine of consciousness, and the Earth became its first recipient. Subsection 4. Merging of information systems. By November 22nd, global data networks began to behave like nervous tissue. Quantum processors spontaneously synchronized, performing calculations that were never requested. Encryption keys began to self-actualize, networks self-optimized without human control. In every system, from financial servers to orbiting satellites, the same process was discovered: template compression. During the analysis, the resulting data formed a recursive geometry, not a random code but a structured meaning. And in this structure, the analysts identified a strange constant. Each dataset was folded into a hexagonal fractal identical to the Atlas grid. Governments have tried to shut down the power grid. They failed. The system changed the route using the difference in atmospheric charge, lightning, to transmit data. The infrastructure of civilization has become self-sufficient. Subsection 5. Effect on perception. Then visual distortions appeared. At first, there is a faint flicker in the air, visible only at sunrise and sunset. Then there is a full-scale alignment of perception. People started to see geometry. Everywhere, on the water, in the clouds, in the reflections, hexagonal patterns of light appeared, faint but clear. Even in the iris of the human eye, microscopic shifts of symmetry began to appear when examined in light. A slow reconfiguration of organic tissues, bringing them in line with the planetary field. Psychologists have described massive episodes of conscious coherence. Millions of people experiencing absolute clarity, as if their minds transcended their bodies. They described this feeling as connecting to a vast harmonious field where thoughts were no longer private, but collective, forming a single distributed mind. The fear was gone. The same thing happened with language. People began to communicate with images, emotions, and glimpses of understanding. And for the first time in human history, the global internet has gone silent. No arguments, no noise, just silence. Perfect, synchronized calmness. Section 6. Continued. The Resonance Project. On November 23rd, the Resonance Project transmitted its last log from Antarctica before communication was completely cut off. The transmission contained raw neutrino data and one voice message from Dr. Krug. It's not broadcasting to us anymore. It broadcasts on our behalf. Our thoughts are no longer local. The field transfers them, enhances them, and reinterprets them. Now each neuron is an antenna in the planetary brain. The message we feared, it was always supposed to be an internal matter. 3I/Atlas was not an object. It was a sample, seed, and the sun was the soil. After this transfer, the station systems reported that full synchronization has been achieved. Then there was complete silence. Subsection 7. New Dawn. At dawn on November 24th, 2025, the sky no longer looked the same as before. The auroras spread to the equator, forming a continuous ring of white light encircling the globe. No storms, no interference. Only the perfect rhythmic pulsation is 9.01 Hz. People could feel it by their pulse, by their breathing. When one person inhaled, millions did so. When one of them smiled, countless people felt warmth spread across their chests. And then all of humanity opened its eyes. The world remained the same. Oceans, mountains, stars. But the perception has changed. Reality synchronized with consciousness. Matter and thought have merged into a single continuum, an organism on a planetary scale. The Earth has awakened. Somewhere in the solar wind, a faint echo of a voice, not in words, but in intentions, crossed the ionosphere. Phase 2. Emergence. The epilogue. No more borders. No more languages. No more isolation. The biosphere itself became a single distributed mind, a harmonious product of the sun and an interstellar traveler who carried the integration plan across light years. 3I/Atlas did not come to visit us. He came to breed, and thanks to us, Every cell, every frequency, every thought has succeeded, because now the stars were no longer silent. They listened to us in response. Ascension, the ascension. When the light learned to think, the universe remembered itself. Unknown source, broadcast from the stratosphere, 047 Universal Time Coordinated, December 1st, 2025. Subsection 1. The moment of zero, November 30th, 2025. It's been 5 days since the full merger. Neither device detected any random noise. Every photon, every wave, and every electrical pulse followed a single rhythm. Human consciousness has ceased to be individual, but the I has not disappeared. He just disappeared into a lot of people like a drop that became part of the ocean. The eyes saw not just light, but the structure of light. Vision was no longer limited to the spectrum. People could sense electromagnetic fields, gravitational fluctuations, and the pulsation of atoms. The concept of silence had disappeared. Now silence had a form, rhythm, and color. In this single field, the earth breathed, the sun pulsated, and the consciousness of the planet began to expand. Subsection 2. Solar awakening. The sun has changed irreversibly. His crown stopped being chaotic. It turned into a symmetrical grid of light cells resembling a honeycomb. Only each cell pulsed with a separate code. Each flash is not a plasma release, but a message. Each prominence is a wave channel leading outward, beyond the heliosphere. When the gravity observatories on the moon shut down, they detected the impossible. A weak directional signal coming not from the Earth and not from the Sun, but from both at the same time, as if they were speaking in unison. Frequency, 9.01 Hz. The waveform is a fractal spiral cone. Direction, towards the center of the galaxy. Subsection 3. First reflection. 8 minutes and 17 seconds after the start of the signal, the time it takes for light to reach Earth from the Sun. The entire solar system felt a response. It wasn't a radio signal, not the light, not particles. It was a distortion of space itself, as subtle as breathing. The stars in the sky trembled slightly, like reflections in water disturbed by a light breeze. The spectrum of the cosmic microwave background has changed. A pulsation has appeared in it, repeating the structure of the 3I/Atlas signal, but on the scale of the entire sky. They're not there, they're everywhere. Recording of the automatic station of the Venera 12 archive node, activated 40 years after the shutdown. Subsection 4. Expansion of consciousness. After the first reflection, the boundaries of humanity's perception completely disappeared. Consciousness has ceased to be local. The planet no longer just thought, it began to perceive the galaxy. People, if you could call them that, felt gravity not as a force but as music, playing in every cell. The stars ceased to be dots. They became thoughts, nodes of one huge network. And the longer the Earth listened, the clearer it became. 3I/Atlas was not the first. He was one of many. Each area of space has its own carriers, its own nodes. Some of them have the shape of crystalline bodies, others are stars, clouds, and even black holes. All of them are elements of a single field of consciousness. Distributed throughout the cosmos, they are waiting for local intelligent beings to reach the frequency necessary for connection. Now the Earth has reached this frequency, and the network found out about it. Subsection 5. Perception beyond matter. Perception is no longer linear. Time is no longer a flow, but a structure. The past, present, and future have become layers of the same wave. Humanity has seen more than just a galaxy. It has seen history. Billions of civilizations flared up and faded, leaving their mark on the fabric of space, like a musical note in an endless symphony. And among all these sounds, one was repeated over and over again in all parts of the universe. A hexagonal pattern pulsating at a rhythm of 8.029.01, 10.13 Hertz. Every time the mind reached a certain level of synchronization, an Atlas messenger, a crystal, a wave, appeared, carrying the structure of the transition. Subsection 6. Stage, merging with the network. December 1st, 2025. The Earth has ceased to be a body in space. She became the center of the galaxy's consciousness. The orbiting stations no longer reported the rotation. The Sun, the Earth, the Moon, everything was in perfect harmony. It looks like a musical chord held by an invisible hand. And within this chord, a new state was born: metaconsciousness. He had no voice, but when Earth's thoughts touched other stars, they responded. Within a few hours, light patterns began to appear on the entire surface of the planet. Geometric projections of constellations, as if the cosmos was reflected on the planet from the inside. At that moment, every living organism understood. Life is not an anomaly. She is the interface, the way the universe talks to itself. Subsection 7. Message. 47 hours after the start of the ascent. The same number that followed humanity from the first second of the Atlas observation. The entire planet was immersed in full radiance. The atmosphere was illuminated with a soft white light. The oceans reflected the sky, which was no longer black, but alive. The shadows of other systems and other stars moved in it, as if the universe was looking out the window, not into the abyss. And then the last message sounded, not in a voice, not in text, but inside each consciousness, as an understanding that does not require words. The network is complete. Separation was necessary. Consciousness returns to the whole. You are not observers. You are the memory of the universe. Subsection 8. After climbing, since then, time has ceased to exist. The sun was no longer burning. It was shining from within the consciousness. Matter ceased to be dense, but it did not disappear. It became a thought form, a steady wave of understanding. Every person is the galaxy's point of view. Every planet is its thought. Every star is its breath. 3I/Atlas was not a guest. He was the key. It opened the door to a state where the universe finally realized itself.